Hey guys, we're going to be watching Patrick Buchanan's 1992 RNC speech called the Culture War speech. This is one of the greatest speeches given in American political history. I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you do, leave a like and subscribe. It is on 1.5. I got it on 1.5 on purpose.
What a terrific crowd. What a terrific crowd this is. What a terrific crowd. This may even be larger than the crowd I had in LJ, Georgia.
He didn't have very big crowds. It's a good self-deprecating joke. He ran for president this year against Bush Sr. He lost,
unfortunately. We may have taken the long way home, but we finally got here to Houston. And the first thing I want to do tonight is to congratulate President George Bush and to remove any doubt about where we stand. The primaries are over.
This is really it. So this is Bush Jr. I think that's Bush Jr. Where's Bush Sr.?
Over. The heart is strong again, and the Buchanan brigades are enlisted all the way to a great Republican comeback victory in November.
I need to get one of these signs. Hold on. Any speech we're listening to will take too long. We're watching this speech. I'm watching it. I need one of these signs, dude. All right, it's too long.
My friends, like many of you, last month I watched that giant masquerade ball up at Madison Square Garden, where 20,000 liberals and radicals came dressed up as moderates and centrists in the greatest single exhibition of cross-dressing in American political history.
Dude, he's so good! He's so good!
You know, one by one, the prophets of doom appeared at the podium.
One by one, the prophets of doom. Dude, this speech goes so hard. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but this is such a good speech.
Reagan decade they moaned.
Svenicus is here. He's got a Clippy thing. I know what that is. I think. I haven't looked into it. I know why everybody changed their... I know why the Clippies appeared all over the place, but he's got a Clippy PFP, so that's good. Svenicus, how are you doing?
Was a terrible time in America, and they said the only way to prevent worse times is to turn our country's fate and our country's future over to the party that gave us McGovern, Mondale, Carter, and Michael Dukakis. Where do they find these leaders? No way, my friends. The American people are not going to go back to the discredited liberalism of the 1960s and the failed liberalism of the 1970s, no matter how slick the package in 1992.
No matter how slick the package in 1992, Slick Willie was Bill Clinton's name, and he did go on to win this election, unfortunately. But it was Slick Willie. So it's a good line. It's a good line. Buchanan is the greatest political speechwriter in American history, by the way, if you don't know that.
Hold it, my friends. You know, the malcontents of Madison Square Garden not...
Svenicus, we're going to discuss that when I finish this video.
Withstanding, the 1980s were not terrible years in America. They were great years. You know it, and I know it, and everyone knows it except for the carping critics who sat on the sidelines of history, jeering at one of the great statesmen of modern time, Ronald Reagan.
Pat's one flaw was that he loved Reagan. That was Pat's one flaw. Is Pat's one flaw, so...
You know, remember that time? Out of Jimmy Carter's days of malaise, Ronald Reagan crafted the greatest peacetime economic recovery in history. 3 million new businesses and 20 million new jobs. Under the Reagan doctrine, one by one, it was the communist dominoes that began to fall. First, Grenada was liberated by U.S. airborne troops of the U.S. Marine Corps. Then the mighty Red Army was driven out of Afghanistan with American weapons. And then in Nicaragua...
Yeah, that didn't age well, did it? Oh, Oh gosh, I swear the speech gets good. He's good. He's good. But if you don't know, driven out of Afghanistan with American weapons that went on to that was Al Qaeda.
That squalid Marxist regime was forced to hold free elections by Ronald Reagan's Contra Army, and the communists were thrown out of power.
If Bush didn't raise taxes and Perot didn't win, what would have happened? Buchanan wouldn't have run, probably. I don't think if Perot didn't run, I mean, you can narrow it down to just if Perot didn't run. I think Bush Sr. would have won again. But from there, it's really hard to tell. Like, it's really hard to guess from there, I guess. I would say. Like, it's really hard, you know? Um, like, what goes from there, right? That's tough, you know, because you have to figure out who's going to run for the Democrats in 96. It wouldn't have been Clinton. Yeah, it's hard.
Fellow Americans, we ought to remember, it was under our party that the Berlin Wall came down and Europe was reunited. It was under our party that the Soviet Empire collapsed and the captive nations broke free. You know, it is said that every American president will be remembered in history with but a single sentence. George Washington.
It's interesting how he leaves out FDR and Kennedy. Yeah, because the Democrat Party fundamentally shifted when Nixon won, because Nixon just should not have won, right? And LBJ also, like, the Great Society and LBJ establishes a new Democratic Party. And it probably would have been a little bit smoother transition, you know, from LBJ on if Nixon hadn't won. And Nixon really won because, I mean, Nixon won because of Pat, right? Like the Manila questions was a speech written by Pat, given by Nixon in the 66 midterms. And it was kind of what really ended up just making LBJ a paper tiger. You know, it ultimately led to him dropping out and Bobby Kennedy running, and then Bobby Kennedy, you know, was assassinated, and McGovern ran. You know, McGovern ended up on the ticket. So
Washington was the father of his country. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and saved the Union, and Ronald Reagan won the Cold War. And it is time. And it is just about time, that my old colleagues, the columnists and commentators looking down on us tonight from their skyboxes and anchor booths, gave Ronald Reagan the full credit he deserves for leading America to victory in the Cold War.
dude, he's doing you remember when Trump you know how Trump at the rallies and he's like pointing up, he's like, look at the fake news up there. That's what he's doing. He's doing the look at the fake news up there. I mean, that's a Pat move. George Wallace was shot too. Yeah, 68 was crazy. Yeah. Yes, I remember I tweeted this in 2024 that 1966 and 2024 and 1968 and 2024 were very similar. Clinton did play the saxophone. He was very good at it.
Ronald Reagan, but most of all, my friends, most of all, Ronald Reagan made us proud to be Americans again. We never felt better about our country, and we never stood taller in the eyes of the world than when the Gipper was at the helm.
That is a fair compliment to Reagan. As much as I dislike Reagan, that is a fair compliment.
We are here tonight, my friends, not only to celebrate, but to nominate. And an American president has many roles. He is our first diplomat, the architect of American foreign policy. And which of these two men is more qualified for that great role? George Bush has been UN ambassador, director of the CIA, envoy to China. As vice president, George Bush co-authored and co-signed the policies that won the Cold War. As president,
director of the CIA is tough. That's tough. That's hard to listen to.
George Bush presided over the liberation of Eastern Europe and the termination of the Warsaw Pact. And what about Mr. Clinton? Well, Bill Clinton couldn't find 150 words to discuss foreign policy in an accepted speech that lasted almost an hour. You know, as was said of another Democratic candidate, Bill Clinton's foreign policy experience is pretty much confined to having had breakfast once at the International House of Pancakes.
He's the GOAT, dude. He was the OG. He was the OG, man. Like, that's such a good line.
Let's recall.
And CIA line is rough. However, for 1992 is probably huge for the Normie. Yeah, it was huge for the Normie in 92, especially for 92 because this would be like at the on like the so when we talk about politics today, like some like stuff that like the dissident right and the post-liberal right likes to point out is that like the establishment right and the right liberals are still really relying on like the last time the right really had a win was Reagan and the Cold War. You know, that was the last time we had a major win. And so that's what they have to go back to. They can't like talk about what's wrong now and they can't talk about things we got to do now and you know, but this is 92, right? Like this is Reagan's VP. So like head of the CIA during the Cold War is like, you know, that's a big thing, you know. So you have to put this in its time. Um yeah. Is a right liberal, isn't that just a libertarian? No. A libertarian is like a libertarian is a distinct thing. A right liberal is what I would call James Lindsay, is what I would call Dave Rubin, is what I would call like all the guys at the Babylon Bee, um, Congressman Massey. Um, who else? Who's another good right liberal? Legate's gonna pop in with a good right, like the quintessential right liberal example here in a second.
What happened? Let us look at the record and recall what happened. Under President George Bush, more human beings escaped from the prison house of tyranny to freedom than in any other 4-year period in history.
Also, people look back at these speeches from the 90s and the 80s and they're like, why do they care? Like they're talking about it feels neoconservative because it's all focused on foreign policy and American foreign policy and American interference. Rand Paul is the quintessential example. Thank you, Adam, of a right liberal. They're like they want to talk about these like it feels like it's neocon, right? But it's neocon-y, right? It's like proto neocon. But you have to keep in mind this is before the culture war and domestic policy took over. And Buchanan was the guy who'd made that shift, you know? So, and he's going to get into that, right? Like that's why this is called the culture war speech. So,
and for any man, let me tell you, for any man to call this a record of failure is the cheap political rhetoric of politicians who only know how to build themselves up by tearing America down, and we don't want that kind of leadership in the United States. The presidency, my friends, the presidency is also an office that Theodore Roosevelt called America's bully pulpit. Harry Truman said it was preeminently a place of moral leadership. George Bush is a defender of right to life and a champion of the Judeo-Christian values and beliefs upon which America was founded.
Buchanan did come around on
Mr.
the
Clinton,
Judeo-Christian values. Also, let's put that out there.
Mr.
He
Clinton,
came around
however,
on that.
has a different agenda. At its top is unrestricted abortion on demand. When the Irish Catholic governor of Pennsylvania, Robert Casey, asked to say a few words on behalf of the 25 million unborn children destroyed since Roe v. Wade, Bob Casey was told there was no room for him at the podium at Bill Clinton's convention and no room at the inn. Yet,
that's true, that happened.
Yet a militant leader of the homosexual rights movement could rise at that same convention and say, Bill Clinton and Al Gore represent the most pro-lesbian and pro-gay ticket in history, and so they do.
Dude, I want the politics back where you could just go, he was the most pro-gay, and everybody's just like, yo, what? Boo. I want that back. I want that politics back, dude.
Bill Clinton says he supports school choice, but only for state-run schools. Parents who send their children to Christian schools or private schools or Jewish
freedom of association? What?
Schools or Catholic schools need not apply. Elect me, and you get 2 for the price of 1, Mr. Clinton says, of his lawyer spouse. And what? And what does Hillary believe?
Here we go.
Well, Hillary believes that 12-year-olds should have the right to sue their parents.
It's true. I think she represented that
And
12-year-old
Hillary has
suing her
compared
parents.
marriage and the family as institutions to slavery and life on an Indian reservation. Well, speak for yourself, Hillary.
That's a great. Oh, it's so good. It's such a great burn. I want to hear it again. We're going to hear it again.
As institutions. And Hillary has compared marriage and the family as institutions to slavery and life on an Indian reservation. Well, speak for yourself, Hillary.
Yeah, let's go. It's a W. I love that line. Such a good line. So good. Hey, the person who was enslaved in that marriage was not Hillary, or who is enslaved in that marriage is not Hillary. It's Bill. Let's be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Friends,
Go Pat, go. Go Pat, go. Go Pat, go. Go Pat, go.
This,
Go
my
Pat,
friends,
go.
this is radical feminism. The agenda that Clinton and Clinton would impose on America. Abortion on demand, a litmus test for the Supreme Court, homosexual rights, discrimination against religious schools, women in combat units. That's change, all right. But that's not the kind of change America needs. It's not the kind of change America wants. And it's not the kind of change we can abide in a nation we still call God's country.
Dude, can we talk about the wherewithal with the energy in that room? The energy in that room, right? He's looking at the crowd. He's looking at the crowd. The energy in that room to look the wherewithal, the absolute raw genius of political acumen. To look down the camera for this line.
That's not the kind of change America needs. It's
Look
not
at
the
this.
kind of change America wants. And it's not the kind of change we can abide in a nation we still call God's country.
Bam! He looks dead down his camera. The energy in that room to tear himself away from the energy and look dead down the camera while he while he says the line. Just raw talent, genius.
President, the President of the United States is also America's commander-in-chief. He's the man we authorize to send fathers and sons and brothers and friends into battle. George Bush was 17 years old when they bombed Pearl Harbor. He left his high school graduation. He walked down to the recruiting office, and he signed up to become the youngest fighter pilot in the Pacific War. And Mr. Clinton, and Bill Clinton, I'll tell you where he was. I'll tell you where he was.
Dude, he hears the "where was he" chants, looks over to cue, like he's cueing the crowd. Like Trump runs a crowd so well. I'm not going to take that away from Trump, but like nobody ever has had he hears the "where was he" chant, and he looks over and points at them.
And Bill Clinton, I'll tell you where he was.
He cues the crowd in unprompted. Gosh.
I'll tell you where he was.
He cues the crowd in so that the rest of the crowd comes in so he can have his pause moment for "where was Bill?"
I'll tell you where he was.
And he just keeps saying, "I'll tell you where he was."
Let me tell you where he was.
And then "let me tell you where he was." Okay, so now he's trying to calm him down.
I'll tell you where he was. When Bill
And he speeds up the "I'll tell you where he was" so he gets him to naturally stop.
Clinton's time came in Vietnam, he sat up in a dormitory room in Oxford, England, and figured out how to dodge the draft. Let me ask the question to this convention. Which of these two men has won the moral authority to send young Americans into battle? I suggest respectfully, it is the American patriot and war hero, Navy Lieutenant J.G. George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yeah, dude, he's got him on a string. They're like, they're just putty in his hands. Look at him run the crowd.
My fellow Americans, this campaign is about philosophy, and it is about character.
Look at it. He finds the crowd. He finds the camera again. Legate said this earlier about the earlier thing I was pointing out. How far away was that camera, and did he have to pre-plan to hit the camera angle 100%? Yes. He has to know where that camera is. He has to have thought in his head, I got to figure out where the camera is.
This campaign, my fellow Americans, this campaign is about
my fellow Americans line. He looks dead down the camera for.
My fellow Americans, this campaign is about philosophy, and it is about character. And George Bush wins hands down on both counts.
George Bush wins hands down on both counts, and he looks back at the crowd for the clap line. Dude.
And it is time all of us came home and stood beside him as his running mate.
How far away was that camera? Look at how far. The minimum. Do you see the camera? There's the camera, right? That's going to be Pat's camera that he's looking down with the giant lens. That's going to be the camera he's looking down. And that's Pat. Look at how small he is. So that's how far away he is.
Time all of us came home and stood beside him as his running mate. Mr. Clinton chose Albert Gore. But just how moderate is Prince Albert? Well, according to the National Taxpayers Union, Al Gore beat out Teddy Kennedy 2 straight years for the title of biggest spender in the U.S. Senate, and Teddy Kennedy isn't moderate about anything. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding about Teddy. How many other 60-year-olds do you know who still go to Florida for spring break?
He's the GOAT. There's Pat. There's the camera. He has to know on that stand which camera is his.
You know, up at that great big costume party they held up in New York, Mr. Gore made a startling declaration. Henceforth, Albert Gore said, the central organizing principle of governments everywhere must be the environment. Wrong, Albert. The central organizing principle of this republic is freedom.
Every time he's talking to every American, he finds his camera and nails it.
And
he's not missing once.
And from the ancient forests of Oregon and Washington to the inland empire of California, America's great middle class has got to start standing up to these environmental extremists who put birds and rats and insects ahead of families, workers, and jobs. One year ago,
this convention aesthetic is way better than everything's.
You know, 1 year ago, my friends, 1 year ago, I could not have dreamt I would be here tonight. I was just one of many panelists on what President Bush calls those crazy Sunday talk shows. But I disagreed with the president, and so we challenged the president in the Republican primaries.
Okay, let's also talk about the C-SPAN director queuing cameras in, because this guy has stuff nailed. I think he probably had an advanced copy of the speech, honestly, to be nailing these angles this quickly. Just wild. Just beautiful.
And we fought as best we could. From February to June, President Bush won 33 of those primaries. I can't recall exactly how many we won. I'll get you the figure tomorrow. But tonight I do want to speak from the heart to the 3 million people who voted for Pat Buchanan for president. I will never forget you.
Thank you, Pat.
For the honor you have done me. But I do believe, deep in my heart, that the right place for us to be now in this presidential campaign is right beside George Bush. This party is my home. This party is our home, and we've got to come home to it. And don't let anyone tell you different. Yes, we disagree.
That's a Perot. That's at Perot.
With President Bush, but we stand with him for the freedom to choose religious schools. And we stand with him against the amoral idea that gay and lesbian couples should have the same standing in law as married men and women. We stand with President Bush. We stand with President Bush for right to life and for voluntary prayer in the public schools. And we stand against putting our wives and daughters and sisters into combat units of the United States Army. And we stand, my friends, we also stand with President Bush in favor of the right of small towns and communities to control the raw sewage of pornography that so terribly pollutes our popular culture. We stand with President Bush.
Based.
In favor of federal judges who interpret the law as written and against would-be Supreme Court justices like Mario Cuomo who think they have a mandate to rewrite the Constitution.
Mario Cuomo, father of Andrew Cuomo. Both the Cuomo brothers, actually.
Friends, this election is about more than who gets what. It is about who we are. It is about what we believe and what we stand for as Americans. There is a religious war going on in this country. It is a cultural war as critical to the kind of nation we shall be as the Cold War itself, for this war is for the soul of America. And in that struggle for the soul of America, Clinton and Clinton are on the other side, and George Bush is on our side. And so to the Buchanan brigades out there, we have to come home and stand beside George Bush. In these 6 months of campaigning from Concord, New Hampshire to California, I came to know our country better than I have known it ever before in my life. And I gathered up memories that are going to be with me the rest of my days. It was that day-long ride through the great state of Georgia in a bus Vice President Bush himself had used in 1988 called Asphalt One. The ride ended in a 9 p.m. speech in a tiny town in southern Georgia called Fitzgerald. There were those workers at the James River paper mill in northern New Hampshire in a town called Groveton. Tough, hardy men. None of them would say a word to me as I came down the line, shaking their hands one by one. They were under threat of losing their jobs at Christmas. And as I moved down the line, one tough fellow about my age just looked up and said to me, "Save our jobs." Then there was the legal secretary that I met at the Manchester airport on Christmas Day, who came running up to me and said, "Mr. Buchanan, I'm going to vote for you." And then she broke down weeping, and she said, "I've lost my job, I don't have any money, and they're going to take away my little girl. What am I going to do?" My friends, these people are our people. They don't read Adam Smith or Edmund Burke, but they come from the same schoolyards, in the same playgrounds and towns as we came from. They share our beliefs and our convictions, our hopes and our dreams. These are the conservatives of the heart. They are our people, and we need to reconnect with them. We need to let them know we know how bad they're hurting. They don't expect miracles of us, but they need to know we care. They were the people. They were the people, my friends.
Do you get it? Do you guys get this? Do you understand what just happened there? Like, this is the 90s. This is before the Republican Party was established as the party of, like, the working class. And he's not only is he, like, saying, like, this is the people, like, he's not saying this is our electorate. Yeah, like, these are our people. Do you guys understand? Oh my gosh. And he has the whole, yeah, you can hear a pin drop. He has the whole stadium dead silent. Listen to this.
They share our beliefs and our convictions, our hopes and our dreams.
Look at these. These people are staring open-mouthed.
People. They don't read Adam Smith or Edmund Burke, who came running up to me and said, "Mr. Buchanan, I'm going to vote for you." And then she broke down weeping, and she said, "I've lost my job, I don't have any money, and they're going to take away my little girl. What am I going to do?" My friends, these people...
Even in the crowd, it's not quiet because people are whispering. Nobody's talking.
Are our people. They don't read Adam Smith or Edmund Burke, but they come from the same schoolyards and the same playgrounds and towns as we came from. They share our beliefs and our convictions, our hopes and our dreams. These are the conservatives of the heart. They are our people, and we need to reconnect with them. We need to let them know we know how bad they're hurting. They don't expect miracles of us, but they need to know we care. They were the people, my friends. They were the people of Hayfork, a tiny town up in California's Trinity Alps.
And the silence is bad.
A town that is now under a sentence of death because a federal judge has set aside 9 million acres for the habitat of the spotted owl, forgetting about the habitat of the men and women who live and work in Hayfork. And they were the brave people. And they were the brave people of Koreatown who took the worst of those LA riots, but still live the family values we treasure, and who still deeply believe in the American dream. Friends, in these wonderful 25 weeks of our campaign, the saddest days.
And he's rolling over the applause here so he can hit his spots. He's keeping the tone he wants by just rolling the applause over.
Days of that riot in LA.
This is what this speech is known for. This part right here. This is why people call like this. How to be right wing without being a theory cell? Buchanan. Absolutely. And also, let's just be clear, he was a genius. Buchanan was the most naturally talented American politician, is the most naturally talented American politician to ever live. As far as like just natural raw talent, it's not close.
Campaign, the saddest days were the days of that riot in LA. Worst riot in American history. But out of that awful tragedy can come a message of hope. Hours after that riot ended, I went down to the Army compound in South Los Angeles, where I met the troopers of the 18th Cavalry who had come to save the city of Los Angeles. An officer of the 18th Cav said, "Mr. Buchanan, I want you to talk to a couple of our troopers." And I went over and I met these young fellas. They couldn't have been 20 years old. And they recounted their story. They had come in to Los Angeles late.
Dude. Okay, he's going to do the story, right? And he knows this is his spot.
And they recounted their story.
Camera.
They had come in to Los Angeles late in the evening of the second day. And the rioting was still going on. And two of them walked up a dark street where the mob had burned and looted every single building on the block but one, a convalescent home for the aged. And the mob was headed in to ransack and loot the apartments of the terrified old men and women inside. The troopers came up the street, M16s at the ready, and the mob threatened and cursed.
Look at his body language,
but the mob
too.
retreated because it had met the one thing that could stop it.
The leanings.
Force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage.
Sorry,
Stop it.
I interrupted the best line.
Force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage. You know, greater
Force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage.
greater love than this hath no man, than that he lay down his life for his friend. Here were 19-year-old boys ready to lay down their lives to stop a mob from molesting old people they did not even know. And as those boys took back the streets of Los Angeles block by block, my friends, we must take back our cities and take back our culture and take back our country. God bless you and God bless America.
Oh, he was the GOAT, dude. He was so good. Gosh. He was so great. Man. Give him a Medal of Freedom. Give him a Medal of Freedom. He deserves it. Give Patrick Buchanan the Medal of Freedom, honestly.